Minister Modi and his ministers resigned to President Draupadi Murmu, leading to the dissolution of the 17th Lok Sabha. The BJP-led NDA, supported by TDP and JDU, will form the next government. Prime Minister Modi's swearing-in is expected on the 9th of June after an NDA meeting on the 7th of June. Key NDA allies Nitish Kumar, Chandrababu Naidu, Chirag Paswan are likely to attend that oath-taking ceremony, is what we are learning. Akshit Gupta, my colleague, is joining us on the broadcast to talk more about this. Akshit, in 2019, this is also to be a high-profile affair. Last time we had around 8,000 guests who showed up from various quarters of the world as well within India. It seems it's going to be a repeat of that.
Well, yes, it's quite likely that Narendra Modi will take oath as the Prime Minister of India on June 9th. And perhaps what we are getting to know is that many, South Asian leaders are also going to participate in it. And as we know that India has already reiterated its claim of, neighborhood first policy. So it's expected that Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and even Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe will also be a part of the swearing-in ceremony, which is likely to take place on June 9th. Meanwhile, ahead of that, hectic day it is today because significant political developments are going to take place in the national capital, wherein, as we know, that the meeting of NDA is going to take place in the central hall of the parliament at around 11 a.m. Of course, quite significant when it comes to, the constituents of NDA offering letter of support to form the government and perhaps elect Prime Minister Modi as their leader and endorse him as the Prime Minister. And it's also being expected that, the allies, TDP and JDU, will also accompany Prime Minister Modi to meet President Draupadi Murmu to stake claim to form the government. Meanwhile, as we know, that, political parleys are taking place in the national capital to negotiate the key ministerial positions. And perhaps a formula can also be worked out today in the meeting as to how to go ahead, with the agenda after the government formation. And meanwhile, we know that the opposition also is in the wait-and-watch mood because they have also earlier clarified that if the opportunity arises, then they will also not hold back to form the government.
All right, Mr. Himanshu Bhatt, senior journalist, also with us on the program. Mr. Bhatt, it's a normal affair. The NDA coming back for the third time. The allies are, of course, poised, to be a part of the government. The rumors about the JDU and the TDP asking for this and that ministry have not been corroborated so far. But once again, the Prime Minister seems to be unstoppable when it comes to his and India's growth story, continuing for another 5 years.
Yes, it will happen that way. See, the rumors will keep on floating till the 9th he, swears in and a ministry comes to the fore. People will keep talking about, JDU asked 5 ministries and TDP asked this and JDU asked that and Chirag Paswan asked those. All those things will go on. That's a part of political gimmicking and it will happen. So we need not be bothered about that. But what is important here is, Narendra Modi coming back to power for the third term and his swearing-in ceremony will show you actual strength of his and the geopolitical weight that Bharat carries now. With our neighborhood policy first, you will see every one of the neighborhood present there, but for Pakistan. Along with that, you will see Global South. The huge leaders, the big leaders of Global South that matter also will be there. And I also do expect, some of the people from G5 and G7 also making their presence felt. Those countries will make their presence felt. So that will show you the growing clout of the country in the world scenario. Because that is going to be very symbolic and it's going to be important for Narendra Bhai to show that maybe depleted a little in terms of seats and majority, but I am still in charge. Now that is what is very important. And in that, what is going to happen is today, when that parliamentary meeting takes place, everything will be vested in the hands of the leader of the party, which will be Narendra Modi. And, the rumor mills, I'm not ready to believe any of the rumor mills now, that 3 ministries or 5 ministries or this and that. railway and agriculture. But mind you, let me assure you that, the core five ministries are going nowhere. And core five ministries that matter the most are going to be with Narendra Bhai, and there is going to be a consistency of the past government. The foreign policy will exactly go on the told line. The Home Ministry will stay as it is. The defense procurements will keep on going. Atmanirbhar Bharat in terms of defense will not be let go. So these are the basic things, And mind you, we don't forget that we are a food basket of the world. More than 30% of the food we produce. And Agriculture Ministry has a lot of say in that. Yes, there might be a leader, a new person heading that ministry, but that will not change because Arjun Munda has lost. Don't expect, that, anything will be gone off and, just given because it's a coalition dharma. Coalition dharma of Narendra Modi will be a little different, or I will say quite different from the coalition dharma of Manmohan Singh government.
All right.
Because, mind you, out of 293, he still commands 240. Whereas the last one commanded 206, and before that it was 145.
Absolutely.
You can
right.
understand. See, numbers we are not talking today once the government is formed, and it is clear that the government is on an agenda, on a given path or a trajectory to make India a third largest economy in coming 5 years.
Mr. Bhatt, appreciate you joining us. Thank you for that. Moving on, caretaker Prime Minister Narendra Modi will invite neighbouring leaders to his 9th June swearing-in, including those from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal and Mauritius. Expected attendees are Bhutanese Prime Minister Shering Tobke, Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Jagannath, Nepalese Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda and Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Ambassador Mahesh Sachdeva, former diplomat, is also joining us on the broadcast to talk more about this. Ambassador Sachdeva, very good morning to you, and I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Ambassador, what do you make of the guest list that is going to be present for the Prime Minister's swearing in? Does this also lead us to conclude that India and its neighbour first policy is still strong and it's prioritized more than ever by this government?
Thank you for having me. I think this is an important issue with many complexities involved. Firstly, it indicates continuity. You recall that 2014, when Prime Minister Modi took over for the first time, he surprised everyone by inviting all SAARC countries, heads of states and governments, including Pakistan. And this was thought to be a bit premature at that time. The Prime Minister was fresh after a stint in Gujarat and didn't have enough so-called exposure to the foreign policy issues. This has continued, and we are having similar invitations with some exceptions like Afghanistan and Pakistan. Secondly, I think it's also an interplay between domestic and foreign policy objectives. Prime Minister Modi is known to have used his foreign policy initiatives for domestic purposes. Diaspora meetings, etc., have been used for good leverage at the home front. Similarly, this would be a narrative to push through that India remains a force for stability, continuity, and force for change in the neighborhood. And we remain the primary determinant of the destiny of South Asia. Thirdly, I think by inviting Maldives president, we have given him a fig leaf to cover himself for his anti-India diatribes in the past by him and by his some of his ministers. Now the clock can be reset, and Modi 3.0 could perhaps begin on a more auspicious bilateral note with Maldives as compared to when Maldivian president began 6 months ago on a rather impromptu, sourish note vis-a-vis India. Uh, Last but not the least, Prime Minister is known to be a personal proponent of diplomacy, and his hallmark is interpersonal relations that he enjoys with leaders across the spectrum, and his very positive ambience with Bangladeshi Prime Minister is very well known. It has it has uh, uh, it has helped us to resolve a number of contentious issues that bilateral relations have had. The contacts in the past few months with other neighboring countries,
Right.
heads of government,
Colonel
have been
Sodhi, international affairs expert, also joins us on the program. Colonel Sodhi, a very good morning to you. Well, the G7 summit is also very near. It's going to be another opportunity for the Prime Minister to cement India's position as a global leader. But, looking at the list of invitees and, the kind of support India has been able to show to some of these invitees only goes on to show that the Prime Minister is very well aligned with our neighbors, and that is something that a responsible country does always.
Jai Hind, Vineet. It's my honor to be on your esteemed channel and a privilege to be with the esteemed co-panelist. Vineet, this decision by the Government of India to invite the South Asian leaders for the swearing-in of Modi 3.0 government is indeed a very good diplomatic decision for two main reasons. The first is that it shows the continuation of our neighborhood first policy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, ever since 2014, has firmly believed in having good relations with our neighbors, and he's gone an extra mile to ensure that we have good relations with all our neighbors. And the second reason is that at a time when China is making inroads in these South Asian countries, this diplomatic gesture of inviting the South Asian countries has sent a very positive signal in the entire neighborhood that India is also willing to help our South Asian neighbors as we've been doing in the last 10 years, we'll do in the next 5 years too. So in my view, I think it's a great decision to invite the South Asian leaders. And one last point I would like to say, like you rightly said, with the G7 summit around the corner from 13 to 15 June in Italy, and Prime Minister Modi is to attend that, this once again shows the respect that the international community has for Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Right, you're quite right. And Ambassador Sachdeva, let's also focus on the G7 summit, which the Prime Minister is definitely going to be attending. Where does the Prime Minister pick up things from when he attends this high-profile summit? Obviously, most of the countries that are participating in the G7 have clearly endorsed India as not only a friend, but a partner that is growing and rivaling China.
I think it reflects well, particularly in terms of manifesting our strategic autonomy. India is the fifth largest economy of the world at the moment and likely to end Modi 3.0 with third largest. It cannot be ignored in G7 sort of framework. It deserves to be there. Of course, G7 has more political and politico-economic relevance, and that is where India is a bit of an outlier. But G7 has to expand and to take care of greater part of the global economy where India matters far more. So when he goes to the Italian G7 summit next week, I think it'll be the first foray outside India for Prime Minister Modi after being sworn in for the third time. People would be interested in knowing whether his continuum from G20 summit last year would have any changes involved. And now that we have a coalition at the center in India, they would also like to know whether it reflects something different economically at the domestic and foreign policy fronts, and whether India's position on Gaza conflict, on Middle East, has evolved since G20 summit. I think there will also be an occasion for Prime Minister to assess whether Ukraine war, on which a peace conference is likely to be held in Switzerland very soon, would have new engagements, new forays. Now, I must also add that elections are also due in UK and United States. So, having secured his third term, Prime Minister Modi would be interested in knowing as to what prospects face the two G7 leaders from these countries. Thank you.
Right. Colonel Sodhi, your expectations from the Prime Minister's third term? Obviously, the victory is not as emphatic as they would have wanted, but nevertheless, it's a victory.
Well, Vineet, definitely a victory is a victory is a victory. And the fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been elected by the Indian electorate for a third term shows yet again the confidence that the Indian citizens have on our Prime Minister. And I feel there'll be no major change in the foreign policy that Prime Minister Modi has been so vigorously and so, unbelievingly with great success being achieved in all his foreign endeavors. This great initiative will continue in Modi 3.0 government also. So overall, the kind of respect that India has gained internationally and domestically on a foreign policy front, on a various other issues, Atmanirbhar Bharat, especially in the defense sector, has surprised the whole world. These great initiatives will definitely continue in Modi 3.0. I think, apart from this, there'll be more great initiatives which will propel India faster, becoming a developed nation by 2047.
All right.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.